This tutorial is for 4th grade, Module 3, Lesson 4. In this lesson, we're going to multiply number discs on the place value chart to show that when you have a number in the ones place and you multiply it by 10, that number becomes 10 times as great. And if you multiply it by 10 again, now the number has become 100 times as great as the original number. We're using this pictorial representation to help students see how those numbers grow. So here I have 5 ones and I'm multiplying it by 100. I'm going to start by just showing 5 discs in my ones place. If I'm going to multiply a number by 100, it's the same as if I multiplied that number times 10 and then that times 10 again. So I know if I take these 5 discs and multiply them by 10, they move to the tens place. So now each disc is worth 110. So instead of having 5 ones, I have 5 tens, or 50. So I've multiplied it by 10, but I'm going to multiply it by another 10, so in the long run I've multiplied it by 100. So now I'll take these 5 discs, multiply them by 10, and I can see that I have 5 discs now in my hundreds place for my final answer of 500. So 5 times 100 gives me 500, and we've shown that 5 times 10 and then times 10 again gives me 500. And in short word form, I can say that 5 ones times 100 is the same as 5 hundreds. So again, the purpose of this lesson is to show how quickly those numbers grow when you multiply them by 10 each time. In this next section, I can solve the problems either mentally or by using the place value chart if needed. So I'll start with 6 times 10. I know that 6 times 10 is 60. Here I'm asking what number did I multiply by 6 to get 600 for an answer? Well, if I think about this, if I started with 6 in my ones place and multiplied it by 10, I would get 6 tens. If I multiplied that times 10, I would get 6 hundreds. So I can see that I multiplied my 6 times 10 times 10 to get 600, or in other words, I can say I multiplied it by 100. 10 times 10 is 100. 100 times 6 is 600. In this case, I'm looking to see what did I multiply by 1,000 to get 6,000. Well, up here I multiplied 6 times 10 times 10 to get 600. Well, I know that if I multiplied that 10 more times, I would get 6,000. So I started with 6, multiplied it by 1,000 to get an answer of 6,000. On the next row, 10 times 4 is 40. 4 times some number got me to 400. Well, 4 times 10 would give me 40. 4 times 100 would give me 400. And in the last problem, some number times 4 got me to 4,000. Well, if the number were 10, 10 times 4 is 40. 100 times 4 is 400. So then 1,000 times 4 is 4,000. Now I'm going to use the place value chart to multiply a 2-digit number times 10. I can see over here that 12 times 10 is the same as 110 and 2 ones times 10. So I'm going to use place value discs to start. So if I have 110 and 2 ones, I have to multiply each of these by 10 to come up with my final answer. So if I take my 2 ones times 10, that will give me 2 tens. And if I take my 10 times 10, that will give me 100. So my final answer is 120. So 12 times 10 is 120. In this example, I'm multiplying a 2-digit number, now times 100. I'm going to start off the same as before. I start with 18 is the same as 110 and 8 ones. And I know if I'm going to multiply it by 100, it's the same as multiplying it by 10 and then by another 10. So I'll take my 8 ones, multiply it by 10, so I have 8 tens, and then I'll multiply that by 10 to get 8 hundreds. Same thing with my 110. I'll multiply that times 10, I get 100, and I multiply that times another 10 to get 1,000. So my final answer is 1,800. So 18 times 10 times 10 is 1,800. 110 and 81 times 1,000 is 1,800. All of this place value work is going to help the students with their mental math. So for this problem, it says to decompose each multiple of 10, 100, or 1,000 before multiplying. What that means is, for this problem 3 times 40, I'm going to look at it as the same thing as 3 times 4 times 10, since 40 is the same thing as 4 times 10. Now I can take 3 times 4, get a product of 12, and I know I need to multiply that times 10 for my final answer of 120. So 3 times 40 can be considered 3 times 4 times 10. Let's look at another example. Here I have 3 times 200. Well, I know that this is the same as 3 times 2 times 100, because 200 is the same as 2 times 100. Now I can take 3 times 2 to get 6, and I'm going to multiply that times 100 to get my final answer of 600. So 3 times 200 is the same as 3 times 2 times 100.